Welcome back to another episode of The Canon on the Boomer Bus channel. I'm your host Terry, and today talking about Obi Wan, the latest in the Disney era of Star Wars. I feel like it's the first review I've done in a while. I wanted to do so many reviews, and I had COVID. I was sick, and then after that I had just a nagging cough. So it feels good to finally be back. With that being said, I've not enjoyed this series throughout. The first two episodes I was okay with. And as I watched the finale today, I'm reminded of something I said after episode 1. And that was Ewan McGregor's acting took this show from okay to great. Now, that was just the first episode. And it still rang true throughout the series. Now, I don't think it was a great series. But I do think it's elevated by McGregor's acting when they allow him to do it, because in all honesty, they didn't really give him the type of focus he should have got for a show called Obi Wan. I think they tried to do too much mystery with Reva, and so we had to spend more time unraveling her story as opposed to starting it off with the Order 66, showing the kid, and then like flashing to Reva as she's like contemplating that, and she gets snapped out of it by one of the Inquisitors, like, third sister, and she's like, oh, huh? And then they tell her to do something, and she goes and do it. And so now you get an idea of her conflict, and then we could get quicker to the point of what her thing is. Because she's the B storyline. She should not have taken up as much time as she did. And to be honest, the way they wrote it was very uneven. So we already know the backlash against her after the first two episodes and all that. Racism. We're not even going to dive into that. But I think part of that is the writing just really not being cohesive for her character. But going into this show, everybody had to understand that it already has some working against it that all prequels do. We know where the story ends up. This isn't, or I guess you could call this a direct prequel. This isn't The Mandalorian, where it's a prequel to where we are, but it's something different. This is a direct prequel with the characters we know exactly where they end up. And so your writing has to be very fine-tuned in order to elicit the kind of emotion and drama that you want. You don't have any of that suspense. I wouldn't say any. You could. But you don't have any of it when it comes to the characters where we know what happens to them. And frankly, that's a lot of people. So when you get to the point where you're talking about, oh, what will happen to Luke? Where you're talking about, oh, will they get Leia back home? You know, will this happen? Well, yes, we know. We know exactly what happens. I mean, even to the extent when Vader and Obi-Wan fight. Now, I don't have a label for this, but there are certain things that we know that are just cool. It might be fan service. Maybe that's the label, but it's certain things that, yes, that's just going to be cool because that's something we want to see. It doesn't necessarily add to the lore. It doesn't make for great storytelling, but it's just cool to see. So Obi-Wan and Vader, we know what's going to happen. Neither of them going to kill each other. We know all that. But it's still cool to see. And it was. But a lot of other stuff doesn't have that built-in cool factor. So you got to make it compelling. And I just don't think they did a good job with this series. On top of that, you got the same issue that Disney has. At this point, you can't say that. All these studios operate differently, so it's hard to lump them all under Disney. Because, yes, if you listen to me, you know Marvel has some real bad writing issues. Star Wars era for Disney has had some bad writing issues. But you think of stuff like Pixar and stuff, so I can't say it's all at Disney. But for Star Wars, especially these Disney Plus shows, we've seen some bad writing. Some of the stuff that just don't make sense and stuff that, you know, it doesn't jive with what we know. And so again, that becomes one of the problems when you're looking at a show that's a prequel, because now you have a certain canon that you got to get towards. And to me, I don't think this series did a great job of it. I think they barely passed. Like, they didn't completely break canon, but they got close enough for you to be like, okay, I could stretch my imagination to think that makes sense. One of the biggest parts was Leia. I think it was such a mistake to make her the crux of this series. Like, yes, some people say that's one of the only things that's going to rise to the level of urgency to get Obi-Wan moving. But at the same time, I think it would have been fine to be shorter, to kind of kick him off into some other stuff. I think you had a really good setup by end of episode 2 to say, wow, actually not 2, 3. You had the setup to say, wow, there's a lot more going on than I know about. There's a whole underground Jedi thing. There's people fighting. There's people trying. You had a setup to send her back home and then let him get more into the minutia of what's happening and reignite his love and his passion and his connection to the Force. But they didn't do that. They tied it all to Leia. And as you do it more and more, it brings up the question more and more, how did you not have a persisting relationship with Leia? Or at least the way that she interacts with him via the video and everything, it would have been way different. Like, and people could sit here and argue. There's nothing to argue. It's a fact. It's not subjective. Obviously, George Lucas did not write this. He didn't write A New Hope with in mind an Obi Wan TV series in 2022. So he clearly didn't have this relationship set up. And so we just take what we know from the original material. Now this material gives us a whole new layer to where the relationship they had prior, it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense she would wait that long to finally reach out to him. And it doesn't make sense that when she did, she would reach out to him as some almost myth that she heard about. This is somebody that she had an intimate relationship with. But it did have some great moments. One part that sticks out to me is when she asked Obi-Wan if he's her real father. And that just, those are some cool moments. But I just think a lot of this show where you're talking about the whole last time we met, I was the learner and all that. Or where you're talking about Obi-Wan once thought as you did, or help me on Obi-Wan, you my last hope. All these things, all these lines that people are now seeing in a different way, and we're worried about that. I think they came right up to the point of breaking canon, but didn't severely damage it. But now the context is different, and the issue with that is there was no reason to do it. There was no compelling reason to do this show. Like, you didn't add really anything. If anything, you negatively impacted for a lot of people. And then, again, we didn't learn nothing new. And so, before it came out, when it was announced, and after I saw it, I still feel the same way. What was the point of it? And it's not to say, that it had to, obviously you want it to be good, but it was just, it didn't communicate an important story to tell. It felt much more like we're just doing this because it's popular. That's just what it felt like. And so, yeah, I just, some of the decisions, definitely the effects, and, it's an interesting time because technology has grown. We've seen a lot of the big budget projects. And while we know it's a TV show, quote unquote, while we know it's Disney Plus, you still, I don't know, at least for me, I can't suspend my disbelief too much. I do feel like, man, I've seen better. It's hard to go backwards, and it's hard for me to be like, it's a TV show, so it's fine. No, it sticks out. The bad effects stick out. And so, there was that, the acting I wasn't I wasn't bothered. Like, nobody did much for me except Obi-Wan, but nobody was terrible. And I already said the story was really weak. And yeah, just some of the decisions, even in the finale, the decision that this made no sense to me when Obi-Wan was like, I'm gonna draw him away. Like, okay, we figured that. But then as he's flying, I'm like, wait a minute. He's on this, large Imperial ship. I'm sure they got hundreds of ships and TIE fighters and everything. Why couldn't Vader just jump in one himself and go chase him and let the Grand Inquisitor continue to chase the refugees or whatever? And then they follow Obi-Wan to the planet and then Vader's like, all right, release my ship. Or prepare my ship. I'll face him myself. So you went and faced him yourself in your own ship anyway. Like, what was the point of you not letting them continue to chase the other refugees? Just stuff like that. A lot of stuff that becomes convenient, just for the plot. And that's not Star Wars or anything specific. That's always bad writing. Like, you're writing decisions and you're writing things happening just for pure convenience and, coincidence. And, it just wasn't good for me. So yeah, at the end of the day, I just don't really know what the story they were telling was. Like I said, I believe McGregor when he acts, but still that's not enough to make me feel like what's going on makes sense or is important. Because it never felt important, it never felt urgent. I never felt that tension because, again, you're a prequel, so you're really working against that already. So now you got to give me some real strong writing, make me care, and it just really didn't. It just really it really didn't. And I forgot what number episode when he went to go to the Grand Inquisitorium or whatever. That was one of the worst written. Like, so much of that didn't make sense. The fact that you got people on both sides in the narrow hallways shooting at Obi-Wan, and it wasn't like he was just moving his lightsaber so fast he was blocking everything. No, he literally stopped blocking one side to block the other, and you couldn't hit him at all. It was just, again, a lot of stuff like that was just very convenient, and it wasn't well executed. So at the end of the day, I see some people saying it's a mixed bag. Obviously, some people love it, some people hate it. You always got that. To me, I think it was okay. I would give it like a C minus. I liked it better than Boba Fett because that was just so frustrating. That writing was some of the worst, and it was so frustrating. This didn't piss me off, but it really was blah to me. And so, yeah. So anyway, that's how I feel about Obi-Wan, the series. Go down in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Share it around. Get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe. And remember, if you heard it here, it's official canon.